Hi, welcome back. Section 2, Sutra 33. Vitarka Badhane Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Evil thoughts, evil passions, an oppression by, on disturbance by, the opposites, dwelling in mind on, constant pondering over. When the mind is disturbed by improper thoughts, constant pondering over the opposites is the remedy. It's pretty windy, huh? In dealing with the subject of Yama and Niyama, Patanjali has given 2 sutras which are of great help to the practical student of yoga. The first of these, which is being considered, gives an effective method of dealing with the habits and tendencies which interfere with the practice of Yama and Niyama. The student who tries to practice Yama and Niyama brings with him the momentum of all kinds of tendencies from previous lives, and in spite of his resolve, the undesirable habits and tendencies in which he has indulged assert themselves strongly and force him to act, feel, and think in ways which go against his ideals. What is he to do under these circumstances? He should ponder constantly over the opposites of the undesirable tendencies which these latter trouble him. In this sutra, the author has given one of the most important laws of character building, a law which modern psychology recognizes and recommends in dealing with problems of self-culture. The rationale of this technique for overcoming bad habits and undesirable tendencies, whether they relate to action, feeling, or thinking, lies in the fact that all evil tendencies are rooted in wrong habits of thought and attitudes, and therefore, the only effective means of removing them completely and permanently is to attack the trouble at its source and alter the thoughts and attitudes which underlie the undesirable manifestations. As is well known, an undesirable mental habit can be changed only by replacing it by a mental habit of an exactly opposite kind. Hatred by love, dishonesty by uprightness. New and desirable mental channels are created by the new thoughts in which mental energy begins to flow in ever-increasing measure, starving and gradually replacing the undesirable habits of thoughts and the wrong attitudes which are derived from them. The amount of mental energy required and the time taken will depend naturally upon the strength of the undesirable habit and the willpower of the sadhaka. But if he puts his heart into the work and perseveres, the thing can be done. Good news, right? Okay. Sutra 34. This is a long one. Vitarka himsadaya krita karita nu modita lobha krodha moha purvaka rdur madhya dimatra dukkha dhyana nanta pala iti Pratipaksha Bhavana. Let me read that again. Those are a lot of words. Vitarka himsadaya krita karita nu modita lobha krodha moha purvaka mrdu madhya dimatra dukkha dhyana nanta pala iti Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Pratipaksha Bhavana. Evil or improper thoughts and emotions of violence, etc., done by self, done through others, and abetted, approved greed, avarice, anger, confusion, delusion, preceded by, caused by, mild, medium, and intense, pain, misery, ignorance, endless, fruit, result, thus so, in this way, on the opposites, dwelling in mind. As improper thoughts, emotions, and actions, such as those of violence, etc., whether they are done, indulged in, caused to be done, or abetted, whether caused by greed, anger, or delusion, whether present in mild, medium, or intense degree, result in endless pain and ignorance, so there is the necessity of pondering over the opposites. Okay, got it. In this sutra, Patanjali has given a brilliant analysis of the factors which are involved in this gradual transformation of undesirable into desirable tendencies, and modern psychology should incorporate the many valuable ideas given in this sutra in its system of ethics. This sutra is a typical example of the vast and varied information which can be condensed in the few words of a sutra and made readily available to the practical student. The first factor we have to deal with in relation to the evil tendencies which are sought to be overcome by Yama and Niyama is the question of instrumentality. Instrumentality. Evil action may be A, done directly, B, caused to be done through the agency of another, C, be connived at or approved. Now this is coming, I'm going to do another video on this because this has been coming up for me a lot lately. Common law takes cognizance of and recognizes responsibility in case of A and B, but not C. But according to the ethics of yoga, blame attaches to all three types of evil actions, there being only a question of degree. The man who sees a thief breaking into a house but does not do anything to prevent the crime is partly responsible for the crime, and will to that extent have to bear the karmic result and degradation of character. It is desirable to have clear ideas with regard to this question, because a very large number of people, good, honest people, manage to deceive themselves and ease their conscience by supposing that if they have not taken a direct part in an evil action, they are quite free from blame. Thus, for example, in India, many people would shrink with horror if they were asked to slaughter a goat, and yet they allow themselves to believe that they incur no karmic responsibility in taking meat because it is the butcher who kills the goat. This illustrates, incidentally, the enormous capacity for self-deception in the case of human beings, where their prejudices come in or where their self-indulgences are at stake. But more noteworthy than this doing of evil action indirectly is perhaps the third way. But more noteworthy than this doing of evil action indirectly is perhaps the third way of participating in it. We sometimes witness a crime, but owing to callousness or desire to avoid getting into trouble, do nothing about it, or may even silently approve of it. We assume that because we have not taken any part, direct or indirect, in the crime, we are quite free from blame. But it is not so according to the yogic ethics embodied in Yama and Niyama. According to the more stringent rules of yogic morality, a man who connives at or is indifferent to a crime being done in his presence, in which from common humanness he should have interfered, is partly guilty of the crime. Inaction in a deed of mercy is action. Inaction in a deed of mercy is action in a deadly sin, as the Buddha warned. If, for example, we see a person being lynched or a child or animal being treated very cruelly, it is our duty to interfere, whatever the consequences, to ourselves. And if we save our skin by remaining indifferent or inactive, we incur responsibility and invite karmic retribution. Of course, this does not mean that we have to become a nuisance and, like a busybody, interfere constantly in the lives of other people with the object of getting wrongs redressed. Yogic life does not mean bidding goodbye to reason and common sense. Cause. The next factor we have to consider is the cause of the evil tendencies which hinder us in the practice of Yama and Niyama. Patanjali has given three causes: greed, anger, and delusion. It should be noted that these three are conditions of mind which precede wrong thoughts, feelings, and actions. This is indicated by the word purvaka. Lobha is the condition of mind which produces the desire to grasp things for ourselves. Krodha is the agitation of the mind produced when any person or thing stands in the way of fulfillment of our desire. Krodha, that's a big one for me. Moha is the conditioning of the mind which results when we are attached to any person or thing. All these conditions of the mind bring about a clouding of buddhi, which renders a person incapable of judging right and wrong. It is this confused and unenlightened state of mind which provides the necessary soil for wrong thoughts, feelings, and actions. That is why pondering over the opposites and thus clearing up the confusion has been prescribed as the remedy in the previous sutra. What has to be remembered is that we have to go to the root of the evil and tackle it there. Degree. The next question to be considered in regard to vitarka is that of degree. In the Hindu philosophical systems, the usual method of classifying a number of things which differ in degree or intensity is to consider them under three broad subheads: mild, medium, and intense. Just like salsa. This method of subdivision is simple and elastic, though naturally it suffers from lack of definitiveness. But as the sadhaka has to free himself completely from the evil tendencies, this lack of definitiveness in the division is not of any practical importance. The importance of subdividing the degree or intensity of vitarka does not lie in providing a scientific method of classification. Its real object is to bring home to the sadhaka the importance of attending to the minor faults in his thinking and conduct, which he is likely to overlook or ignore. The sadhaka has to develop a high degree of scrupulousness with regard to his thoughts, feelings, and actions, which is generally lacking in people who strive to lead a moral life. It is, in fact, this meticulous attention to our inner and outer life which produces moral perfection and brings about those results which are mentioned in the 11 sutras, beginning with section 2, Sutra 35. It should be borne in mind that the subtler forms of an evil tendency do not reveal themselves to us unless and until the grosser ones have been eliminated. So this complete elimination of any particular kind of vitarka will seem to be continually receding, and it may appear to the aspirant that he can never acquire the perfection for which he is striving. But far better this never get done feeling than the easy complacence which is fatal for the man who is treading the path of yoga. The results in which the practice of different elements of yama niyama culminate can always enable the sadhaka to check his progress and to know definitely whether he has completed the task of developing any particular trait. Results. The last point dealt with in this sutra is the result of the tendencies which are sought to be eradicated by practicing yama niyama. The two inevitable consequences of an undisciplined and unrighteous life are dukkha and ajnana, pain and ignorance. Both words being used not only in their ordinary sense, but also in their more comprehensive philosophical sense. The word dukkha is used in yogic philosophy not only for the ordinary pains and sufferings which are the karmic results of evil thoughts and deeds, but also for that general unhappiness which pervades all human life and which really poisons even the best and happiest periods of our existence. This point has been discussed thoroughly in section 2, Sutra 15, and we need not go into it again here. In the same way, ajnana means not only the confusion of mind and lack of wisdom, which result from our evil tendencies, but also the lack of that fundamental knowledge of our true divine nature, which is responsible for our bondage and suffering in human life. Dukkha and ajnana are thus the two general and inevitable results of a life which is not fashioned according to the ideas embodied in Yama Niyama. All the undesirable tendencies in our character produce an endless ananta, series of cause and effects, which keep the soul in bondage and consequently in misery. The only method of escape from this vicious circle of causes and effects, which is available to a human being, is first to discipline the lower nature according to the ideals of Yama Niyama, and then treading the further stages of the path of yoga to gain enlightenment. That is the real reason why Yama Niyama should be practiced to perfection, and all vitarka should be removed by pondering over the opposites. It may be worthwhile mentioning here that although the 10 elements included in Yama Niyama have been mentioned specifically and have to be practiced separately, we should not forget the unity underlying human nature. Our nature, though it seems to have different facets, is essentially one. We cannot, therefore, divide life in watertight compartments and practice the different elements of Yama Niyama one by one as if each had an independent existence and could be isolated from the others. The fact is that all these elements are closely interrelated, and the qualities which they are meant to develop are the different aspects of our inner life. How far we are able to develop one of the qualities will depend to a great extent upon the general tone of our life. No one can practice ahimsa, for example, even if he tries his best, if he neglects the other elements of Yama Niyama so closely. Is one part of our nature bound up with the other parts? All parts of our nature hang together, and we rise and fall as a whole to a very great extent. So, it is the general quality of our life and moral nature which has to be improved step by step, though we may concentrate on different qualities for some time. The value of a diamond depends upon the quality of the stone as a whole, and not upon the polish of one facet. But in order to produce a finished gem, we have to take up the different facets one by one. It may also be interesting to inquire why the word vitarka is used for those improper thoughts which are sought to be excluded from the mind in the practice of Yama Niyama. The word vitarka is used to indicate a state of mind in which it passes from one alternative to another, as shown in dealing with Section 1, Sutra 42. This state is also present in the earlier stages when a person tries to live according to an ideal. There is always vacillation and struggle, and the mind hovers between two alternative courses. It is only when the sadhaka is well established in righteousness, by doing the right under all circumstances, that this vitarka ceases, and he invariably does the right thing unhesitatingly. The student will thus see the appropriateness of the use of the word vitarka in the present context. That's the end of that one. All right, the next sutra, which we'll do in the next video, is 35. On being firmly established in non-violence, there is abandonment of hostility in his presence. Beautiful. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.